Well, here we are. It's 9:30 on Thursday, the 12th of December. I can't remember. 2019. It is the end of polling day. About half an hour, 35 minutes to go before the polls close. And waiting for the exit polls from the ITV and BBC and all that sort of stuff to come out. Although again, I don't know if it'll be correct. I mean, it's probably the most accurate polls that have come out thus far, or should be. But I've sort of spent the day avoiding watching much news and things about the election because I've had my life's been full of it for 6 weeks. Had our last sort of campaign meeting last night locally, me and my mates, and they've worked absolutely, I can't believe how hard they worked. Just a few of us in a group of us at the Real People's Assembly, so everyone's worked themselves into the ground, trying to get some socialist, finally, after 4 decades, some socialist policies actually implemented in this country, and Labour back, hopefully, as a socialist party, not just for the interests of the big business, as New Labour was, and the millionaires. So I've got to see how it goes. I have just recently, while I've been having my tea, had a little look at the news, and there's been this phenomena down south particularly, and I think I was also in Manchester, of big queues of particularly made up of young people outside polling stations voting. So whether that translates to anything or means anything, we'll find out soon, won't we? So it's going to be interesting to see. But all I know is I couldn't have done any more. My mates, comrades, friends, they couldn't have done any more. Humanly possible. It would have been possible to do more than they've done. So yeah, this is part 1, and I'll see you tomorrow morning with the result, and either be licking my wounds and not very happy, to put it mildly, or disappointed yet again, and for what it means for me and my family if the Tories are back again, or full of hope if they're not, and if Labour get into government somehow to implement their policies. So let's see. See you in the morning. Bye. Well, that went well. Yeah. This is obviously the second part of this video. It's almost a week later. I've been the first part was shot on Thursday night, just before the exit poll came out, just before 10 o'clock, and I thought I needed to take 3 or 4 days to just sort of get over my general pissed offness, to be honest, and upset. I was upset. I'm not going to make moans about it. I was upset. Not because it was a huge shock to me, because it wasn't. In fact, I was upset because it wasn't a shock. I was upset because I'd spent the previous year or more, ever since the Labour conference, which I think was had in Brighton, which I think was 2018 actually, where Keir Starmer forced through the Remainer sort of vote, the Remain vote basically, at conference, and conference voted for it. It went through as basically then as Labour policy, and I knew from that moment on as anyone else did, within or without the party at the time, it would be disaster for us, for obvious reasons. I remember watching Dennis Skinner, his reaction on the night, on the news that night when it was passed, because he knew, like me, what that would mean. So yeah, that's why I still am and was very upset, because for almost well over a year, and probably more than that, I've been saying to my ex-colleagues now, because I'm not a Labour councillor anymore. I'm an independent councillor. In fact, I left the party, Welsh Labour, about a week and a half before the actual polling day, because I could see which way it was going, and I just wasn't comfortable at all, and I was angry then. I could see it was going to happen. Despite, I mean, don't get me wrong, I killed myself. All of my friends through the People's Assembly here, absolutely. I mean, they absolutely killed themselves trying to make up the difference here. It didn't work. We lost here. The Vale of Clwyd up in North Wales. It was a Labour. We won it 2 years ago. Back for Labour, Welsh Labour. It was lost on Thursday. It's gone back to the same Tory MP that was there from 2015 to 2017. In fact, all bar one, all of the Welsh Labour seats up here in North Wales are gone. They're all gone, apart from Allen and Deeside. Sorry, Allen and Deeside. But as you might have seen on the news, Wrexham's gone. Wrexham's been Labour since, I think, the 1930s. But as I say, none of it was a surprise. But it was a disappointment, just because the amount of effort and work I put in, despite, and all my friends are putting, despite knowing what was probably going to happen. Blame? Well, I don't blame. I want to make this clear. Sky News, ITV, BBC, all those centrist, smearing bastards who propagated, along with the right-wing newspapers owned by the millionaire media moguls, who propagated the biggest, most vicious, most personal propaganda smear campaign against an individual and a party, or a certain section of a party, but particularly an individual, Jeremy Corbyn, since the Second World War. I mean, it was absolutely, it wasn't just disgusting, it was insanity, absolute insanity. I mean, it's over now. There's a bit of distance in time. It's over now. Jeremy Corbyn's going as a leader and all that. Labour. We're not in the heat of the general election campaign anymore. Did you really believe now, afterwards, if you did believe before, all the stuff that was being said about him being a supporter of racism? Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, you can't have it. On one hand, he's supposed to be, or accused of being, some peacenik, lily-livered, doesn't support our boys and girls in the armed forces, all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, apparently, he's the biggest racist since Adolf Hitler. I mean, this is the sort of just wall-to-wall, never-ending, non-stop crap, the likes of it I've never seen in my life, to be honest. In 45 years of watching political campaigns and general elections, never in my life have I seen anything like what happened to character assassinate one person. And we all know why that was. Now, don't get me wrong, I was never I was never a fully paid up Corbynista. I respect Jeremy Corbyn. I respect his stoicism, his lifelong fighting peacefully for peace and equality and against war. Who wants war? And all these sorts of things. Some things I wasn't. I don't live down in leafy London. Things like LGBT rights, which of course I want, but they're not sort of right up. This is part of the problem. They're not sort of top of my lists up here in bloody North Wales, in Rhyl, where people can't feed themselves. They're up there, but it's not at the top of the list. Getting people food, getting people a roof over their heads, that's just the top of my list. But of course, he believes in that, and I believe in it, but priority-wise, and I think this is one of the problems with working class people who are struggling like bollocks to just get through a week. It's not high on their list of priorities. Even I'm not saying they're against it, but it's probably. And I think that was part of the disconnect, possibly, because as fantastic as Jeremy was, I mean, the amount of shit he took over the years, I don't think I could have taken. I don't think anybody could have taken as well as he did. And like I said, the pure character assassination was. So I'll always respect him for that. The manifesto, the Labour manifesto, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Would have transformed this country so that the poor actually got something and got it back, rather than the rich. Not just the poor and the middle class. Everyone, everyone would have got something, including the rich, to be honest. It's not going to be cut out completely. But, weren't voted for, so it's not been implemented. So now we go into this, so, yes. I don't blame Corbyn. I don't blame Donald. I don't blame the manifesto. Again, Sky News and BBC and all the right-wing papers. Oh, it was too left-wing. It was too too radical. Because apparently, wanting to give homeless people secure housing is radical. Wanting people not to have to go to food banks to feed their families over Christmas is radical. You know what I mean? Not sanctioning people to the point where they kill themselves is radical. Not stopping someone's PIP or ESA out of the blue for no reason, again to the point where they're destitute and suicidal. It's apparently radical according to Sky News and the BBC and ITV and the Sun and the Mail and the Telegraph and the Spectator and all these, all the usual sort of establishment mainstream media. So no, that's what I don't blame. And I think anyone in their right mind wouldn't blame, unless you're a Tory, unless you're a massive Tory and a Johnson. Obviously, you're going to disagree. But I do blame. At the end of the day, and this is the ironic part, I suppose, I blame the movement that sprang up around Corbyn in 2015. And obviously, what I'm talking about there is the support for Labour's Brexit policy during this general election. 2015, Corbyn's elected, supported by the new membership, largely. The Labour Party's membership swells to over 500,000, making it the largest political party in Europe. I was there, it was fantastic, And then for 2 years, we're making inroads, we're slowly but surely bringing the Labour Party back from the supposed centrist, Blair, New Labour, full of lawyers, full of tax accountants, full of basically watered down Thatcherite sort of politicians, professional types, and all that. Back from that back towards normal, ordinary people, That was the whole point. That was the whole point for me. And back to socialism, back to building social housing, back to putting the safety net back in the welfare state, back to fully funding the NHS, not running NHS like a business, which is what the Tories think everything's a business when it's not. It's supposed to be, the NHS is supposed to be a monopoly, a state-run monopoly for your and my benefits. So that's what happened between 2015 and 2017. Of course, all that time you had Blair still in the party, and Mandelson, and all of the lot left over from the Blair sort of era. You still had all the pushback and stuff in the Blair supporting media and the Tory supporting media about Corbyn, and he's an IRA sympathiser and all this kind of shit. I mean, just imagine when he was talking to the IRA and to the unionists and everybody that would listen or meet with him during the 80s and 90s to try and sort of bring about peace talks. He's a terrorist sympathiser. The fact that the British government were doing exactly the same thing, just no one knew about it because it was done in secret. They're peace negotiators. Another baffling load of crap from right-wing media that stuck. Anyway, so during that period, they're making slow progress to bring the party back to where it's supposed to be. About you and me, not about the rich, not about big business. And then we hit mid-2017 maybe? Or we hit the election in 2017. Labour does better than it's done since 1945 in the election. Didn't win, but compared to what happened at Ed Miliband in 2015 and Gordon Brown in 2010, we were just miles ahead. We're building the party within 2 years, basically, of the new movement in the party. Popular manifesto, popular stance on Brexit, that we were supporting the decision to leave as a party, obviously respecting that, supporting that. But then, of course, from that moment on, and you can feel it within the movement really, something happened and it all started to sort of slow down. I think it was partly from grassroots level where I am, down on the ground really. It was as if, I think some people thought, well, job done, or, we're getting there, so maybe we don't need to be as involved as we were. In some places like here, for the local Labour lot here, in Wales it's slightly different because Welsh Labour was and is still very Blairite. So the trouble we had here, I mean, I'm not a Labour member anymore, but the trouble we had here trying to sort of just do everything within the rules and do everything fairly, and just trying to elect people onto executives and things that are fully paid up members, but from the Corbyn and the sort of left, non-Blairite, non-right-wing sort of part of the party, became impossible, basically, because with the support of the right-wingers still in Welsh Labour and the right-wingers in Labour nationally, the NEC and the Welsh Executive and that, the local organisers, things like that, we were just getting shafted. There was no way around it, basically. It was a concerted effort to sort of lock us out, and that's what happened. So all of the sort of small little bits of progress we made suddenly just stopped and reversed. So even though you were paying your membership fees and working for Labour, and like in this generation working my arse off, and loads of my friends Labour working their arses off, as far as the day-to-day meetings and running of local Labour here and in lots of places across the country, you were just completely pushed out, locked out. You couldn't get elected onto the executive. If you were, you weren't supported. You weren't. It was a hiding to nothing, basically. Rules weren't followed. Rules aren't followed. Complaints aren't passed on. Complaints aren't considered from us. I mean, the amount of complaints here I just lost count, to be honest. They just disappeared. Became a joke in the end from the right wing to us. So you complain. If you don't like it, just complain about it. Ha ha. Knowing that no one would ever see it. The Welsh executive would never see it. It'd never be considered. It just gets lost in the ether. But what could we do? Because they were sort of complicit in it, So that's what started to happen at the grassroots sort of level. And then at the same time, like I say, conference 2018-ish, and before that, Corbyn, who didn't have enough allies from the left, who were part of the movement trying to change things and bring it back from Blairism and all that, on the right wing, had to have a shadow cabinet, of course, and had to fill the positions. But in the parliamentary party, 2/3 of the parliamentary party was still anti-us, anti-Corbyn, anti-normal people, pro-business, pro-Blair, pro-Iraq war, even though they said they weren't, but they were, all this kind of stuff. There's the dregs left over because they were never got rid of. So Corbyn had to pick, unfortunately, from that pool, because that's what all he really had, to fill some of the positions. Now, unfortunately, that's why you end up with people like Keir Starmer, Emily Thornberry, people like that, who are fully paid up, metropolitan London professional. I mean, they're both lawyers, centrists, the Blair wing, support Corbyn like the noose supports the hanging man, basically, as George Galloway likes to say, and similar people like that. And so from that moment onwards, suddenly it's the push for Remain. Renege on the promise to support Brexit. Remain at the conference, and then Remain's going to be on the ballot. And every time you saw Thornberry then, as a member of the Shadow Cabinet on Question Time or the BBC or being interviewed, it was, I think this is our policy, but I'm going to campaign for Remain. Same with Starmer and others. And that's what sunk us. I knew that's what was going to sink us. My 85-year-old mate, Duncan, who I campaigned with for years and years now on the ground, he knew that was going to sink us. And it's funny how we were a couple of working class members of the movement here who knew and kept telling our comrades who were were on our part of the movement and everything, and on the same wavelength and everything like that, but from the middle classes really, who haven't had to go through, haven't had to live on job seekers allowance, universal credit, worry about being sanctioned, do sort of manual labour jobs, the working class sort of stuff, haven't had to live the lifestyle that you do as a member of the working class and the underclass in this country. So they sympathise, but they don't really they haven't got the experience of it. They don't really, if things went tits up, it wasn't really going to destroy their lives. Things have gone tits up, it's going to have a huge impact on my family's life, and probably yours and anyone else who's not doing okay financially, who's not in the middle, who's working class. You're probably going to get shafted now. As far as the NHS goes, we're probably all going to get shafted, to be honest. Now, the Tories are already softening or trying to soften us up with advertising campaigns to put in your minds that it's okay to pay for certain things within the NHS. It's normal. It's a normal thing to do. So that's coming your way soon. So warned them, because of course the vast majority of them were Remainers. This was past that conference because the membership, the vast majority of the Corbyn supporting membership were middle class Remainers, not representative of the mass base voting working class non-members of Labour, but still voted for Labour, who were on the whole leavers. In that sense, I was in the minority within the party, within the paid up members, and I tried to point this out as nicely as I could on our sort of social groups on social media and in person, but it wasn't. They didn't want to hear it. And I understand they didn't want to hear it. Thought I was being a bit of a doomsayer and all this sort of stuff. And I knew from talking to people, meeting people for years here, and particularly at that time, on Saturdays with Duncan, during the weeks outside the job centre and things and protesting, this is what was going to happen, and it has. But it's obviously such a life is going to become so even more difficult and dangerous and hellish for people like me and my family and my residents who are working class, who don't have anything now, with a majority Tory government led by Boris Johnson. It's about as right wing as you're going to get within the Tories, surrounded by right wingers. It's just I cannot bring myself to even say I told you so to them, because it's not about I told you so. It's Jesus. Something I think Jesus, pardon my French, we are fucked. Absolutely. And yes, I'm quite cross at my former colleagues who didn't listen and seemed to be shocked for some reason, because they're not going to get hit like I'm going to get hit. Their families aren't going to hit like my family's going to get hit. I'm lucky in a sense, because for the first time in my life, in 45 years, I'm slightly out of the position I would usually be in as much as I'm not out of work, unemployed, having to go through universal credit or job seekers allowance at the minute, or about to. As long as things go to plan, I'm doing my PhD for the next full-time for the next mostly 3 years. Still have no money. I have no money. I have basically about 5 or 10 quid a week more doing that than I did on universal credit, and that's it. So I'm still on sort of nothing to live on, really, in the big scheme of things. And I can only sort of survive and only have this roof over my head and the food in my belly, thanks to my family let me stay here. But I have to give them everything I've got so that we can all live together. We can all, because they haven't got anything themselves, so we can all sort of put it together and try and get through. But I'm lucky, There's lots of people I get contacted by today. Went uptown today. Sat in Greggs as I often do, because that seems to be the sort of hub of a lot of local people in town and that, and the regulars and that. They came in and met loads and loads of people I know and everything, and all of them, nice to see them all, but they all had terrible things happening to them, including homelessness right now before Christmas, including horrendous health, just about as bad as you can get, sort of health diagnoses and things, with the hospital here absolutely, well, I'm not going to say on the brink, past the brink, same as it is everywhere else, and we've got 5 more years of these rich Tory tough bastards now. And I want to dispel one thing, actually, again, from the Sky News, BBC, ITV and the Sun and the Mill. They're all trying to push it was Corbyn was to blame, it was him, it was his personality, his radical manifesto. The working class didn't like it, they rejected that, and they flocked to the Tories. They left Labour and they flocked to the Tories, and because of the Brexit policy. I'll accept the Brexit policy, the rest is bullshit. Absolute bullshit. And I'll tell you why, because I've got numbers here, because as I say, I'm not some sort of just average moron who makes a video on YouTube. I'm a PhD researcher. I do numbers, I do research, I read research, publish research and articles by other academics and researchers. So so forgive me if I look up for a minute. But here in Wales, a very pro-Leave country, very pro-Leave, back in 2016. Let's just dispel this myth. So we're talking about numbers of people now. This is people who voted for which parties, okay? And bear in mind, the problem is we've got this bloody stupid first past the post system, which doesn't represent individual votes, which of course it should do in a proper democracy, but it doesn't, because it benefits people like the Tories, basically. Sometimes, mostly the Tories. So, in Wales, so this is comparing the 2017 election, general election, to what happened on Thursday. So the 2 years sort of gap, basically, just over 2 years. Right. So in 2017, Labour in Wales, Welsh Labour, won 771,354 votes. Okay, and that was the time when Labour was supporting Brexit. Okay, and again had a radical manifesto, not quite as radical, but radical, which was supported. Okay, making us the biggest party in Wales, control the Welsh Assembly, with the most Assembly members, sort of like MPs being in Wales. On Thursday, we won 632,035 votes. So we lost in that 2 years. We were down 139,319 votes. Okay, so now if you listen to the media and what they've been telling you, Sky, those votes from angry, furious, long-term working class Labour voters, furious with Labour, they flocked to the Tories and gave the Tories this landslide. We could talk about this mandate to do all this horrific stuff they're going to do, because that's what the working class people want them to do to them. Want them to do to the country. Not true. So bear in mind, Wales, Labour lost in 2 years 139,319 votes. So those, most of that, if you listen to the media, should have gone to the Conservatives to a certain extent in this country. I'll come to the national figures in a minute. The Conservatives, between 2017 and last Thursday, gained just only 28,395 votes in Wales. Now, Labour's still the biggest party in Wales and still controls the Senate down in Cardiff. As I said at the beginning of this video, North Wales has turned, all the Labour-held seats have turned mostly, almost completely blue to the Tories, apart from one. South Wales has almost completely remained Labour, apart from one or two, which turned. So it's a divided north-south divide, really. But as I say, Labour lost 139,319 votes, but the Tories only gained 28,395 votes. So it wasn't that people flocked from Labour, angry working class voters, Brexit leavers, flocked from Labour to the Tories. It was mostly that angry Labour voters just didn't turn out. Because there's a difference between being angry with Labour about the Brexit policy, or not liking Jeremy Corbyn because you're told it by the right media. There's a difference between that and then actually going to give Tories and Boris Johnson, an Eton Tory, your vote. There's a difference. Many people I met who were angry could not bring themselves to do that. So that's the reality of Wales, and that's what's been borne out in the national figures. I'll quickly give you just the 30%. The national figures. So bear in mind we keep hearing on Sky News and in the papers, there's all a landslide for the Tories, all the people that switch from Labour and the working class and rush to the Tories to give Johnson all this mandate and the landslide because he's so popular with working class Labour voters. Bollocks. Here are the numbers for you. This is the UK, okay? Again, comparing 2017 to last Thursday's elections. Labour in 2017 won 12,877,918 votes. Last Thursday, that went down to 10,269,000 76 votes. So Labour lost in the 2-year period nationally 2,608,842 votes. 2.6 million votes. They lost 2.6 million votes in the 2 years, primarily because of the Brexit policy. Okay? So you would expect 2.6 million lost votes. You would expect a substantial chunk of those to have gone to the Tories, wouldn't you? If you listen to Sky News and, all about this landslide and the manner. No. Again, no. The Tories in 2017 won 13,636,684,000 votes. Last Thursday they won 13,966,565 votes, which means they gained in 2 years 329,881 votes. That's all. Around just under 330,000 more people in the whole of the UK voted for the Tories this time round, as opposed to 2017. Labour lost 2.6 million voters, but the Tories only picked up 330,000 extra voters. So there was no exodus of working class Labour voters furious at or disgusted with the manifesto because it's so radical and they hated it so much and flocked to the Tories and Johnson to give them this mandate and this landslide. Absolute lie. These are numbers. I haven't made them up. These are numbers. These are actual votes from the Electoral Commission. These are the votes, numbers of votes. That's all the Tories gained this time round. 330,000 votes out of a country of 65 million people. Yes, Labour lost, of course, because Labour lost 2.6 million voters. But they just didn't vote Labour. They did not flock to the Tories. Despite what Sky News keeps telling you, despite what the Sun and the Mail tell you, despite what the Times and the Telegraph and the Tories tell you. Didn't happen. But because we got this absolute terrible, undemocratic first past the post system, it skews the results as far as how many MPs the parties get. So yes, of course they've got more MPs in Parliament than Labour. But I'm talking about the support they got from the public and support they supposedly got from angry Labour working class voters. And it weren't much. Wasn't much at all. Because again, there's a difference between that being angry at Labour over Brexit and the Brexit policy and deciding to vote for a Eton Tory, overprivileged, multi-millionaire toff and his Eton Tory, Harrow Tory, Winchester Tory, overprivileged, multi-millionaire toff cabinet members and friends in business. There's a huge difference. So Labour can turn. I'm not in Labour anymore. Labour can turn this around if they. It's not just about voting for the right leader, a working class leader who gets it. Because of course now their push is to go back to the Blair. Let's go back to the centrist ground in the Blair years. Let's have Starmer and Thornbury and all that sort of stuff, or Jess Phillips. Because that'll save us if we go back to Tony's good old days. Will it? I thought Tony and the Blairites lost in 2010. I thought that was the point. They lost. They hemorrhaged about 5 million votes, if memory serves. 5 million Labour voters. And we lost in 2010, which is why we're here now. 10 years of Tory austerity, thanks to the fantastic centrist Blair policies. And how much the working class Labour voters loved that. Hemorrhaged 4 to 5 million voters from Labour. So let's get it in perspective. It's not just about a change of the right leader and getting the right leader. It's got to change from the grassroots up. The remaining members have to understand that the party has to embrace and re-embrace and get the trust back from ordinary working class people like you and me. There can't be any more sneering. There can't be any more, oh yeah, we know you felt like that, but you know, we know best. Do what we say and take your medicine. It's you know, just trust us, it will be better for you. No, that's not how it works. So that's what I'm going to be watching from the sidelines, seeing if that happens or not. I'm out of Labour, so I'm not really part of that anymore. I'm just doing what I can do, really. I'm going to do what I can do here, again, with no resources. And just myself and some of my mates and my family. Just try and help people who are getting stuff. We've got a Tory-run council here, so that's probably going to get worse as well. And yeah, so I've got the Christmas hat on and see all the red, because this is probably my last video before Christmas. So if you can, if you're in a position to, I wish you and your family a very, very Merry Christmas and a very, very Happy New Year. Don't drink too much. It's not good for you. I know you might feel like it, but don't drink too much. And I'll see you next year for more fun and games. But for now, ciao. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun. Ugh.